Right now, I focus on coaching mainly for women in tech roles. And a lot of my clients are women, either in engineering, doesn't have to be in engineering, sometimes in marketing, sales, or other fields, but in tech.
Let's say for a woman watching this who is just at the crossroads, she's having a very hard time at work. What are the conditions under which you would say it's justified to dust her feet and leave that job?
Advice I would give, not just for women, but for everyone, just, you have to kind of balance. You don't want to be seen on one hand arrogant, but on the other hand, you don't want to shy away. There's kind of balance between doing great work, making good decisions, but also kind of externalizing what you do a little bit. So people actually know what you're capable of and also know, not less importantly, what you want.
Hello, Limor. How are you today?
I'm pretty good. How are you, Newton?
Doing okay myself, doing okay. I'm happy I'm pronouncing that name correctly.
That's okay. Either way, it's fine.
Really, really glad to have you here with us today, Limor. Do you mind, in your own words, tell us who you are and what you do on a day-to-day?
Absolutely. So, hi everyone. My name is Limor, and right now I focus on coaching for women, mainly for women in tech roles. And a lot of my clients are women, either in engineering, doesn't have to be in engineering, sometimes in marketing, sales, or other fields, but in tech. And the challenges they have a lot of times is that they feel stuck in their careers and they're not sure how to progress, whether it's an IC role or a leadership role. And I help them see more opportunities and be more proactive and regain their power. So a lot of times it happens that we feel powerless in our career. So I help them regain the power and see possibilities. And I do that because I'm very passionate about women. I want to see more women, not just in tech, but grow into leadership and executive roles. And it started kind of, my passion started throughout my career. As you said, I was in engineering, I was leading organizations. And as I grew in my career, I saw less and less women, and there are not many role models for me. So I want to have women in those roles so they can be role models for the next generation of women. And in general, I want to see more women in tech. So that's why I do what I do.
Wonderful introduction, by the way. You just piqued my interest, and I think roughly 10 questions just popped in my head now around women in tech, which I didn't have before this call started. So really happy to have you in particular on this call. I think you're the most equipped to provide some answers for this. Hopefully we're going to have enough time to run through all of them. But just quickly, if I may backtrack a bit, Limor, just to get a better understanding of where you're coming from, do you mind just giving us a light walkthrough? What we are keen to understand is, how you got started in the tech industry. We would like to know if you got some formal qualifications. I don't know how many of them you still remember, right? But you could just focus on what you got from academia, maybe at a bachelor. So if you had those, not everyone has those, but if you do, kindly share the exact qualifications you had. And if you got some certifications along the way, which kind of propelled you into critical positions along the way, and how you eventually transitioned from probably engineering roles, which I'm guessing you started with that, into more managerial and leadership roles. So we just want to be able to envision the path you've taken so far.
Sure, absolutely. So I think it started in high school. Back then when I went to high school, we didn't have like a specific, there was computer science, but not like as a major. So I took like a stint of programming, I would say, at high school. Back then it was Pascal. That was the language we were taught. Actually, it's not a bad language to start with. It's not a bad programming language. And I remember I really liked that. I liked the way of thinking and the logic that went into that. Not just the writing itself of the code, but the way of thinking, of solving problems. And in Israel, you have to do mandatory military service. So I went to the military, and throughout military, I said, I'm thinking about studying computer science at university. Maybe I'll just take another programming course, just kind of, to see if I like it or not. So I took a course in the Open University, and I saw that, that's definitely something I can do. I like it. I feel like I have the right skills. And after military service, I went to study computer science in university. So I have a bachelor degree in computer science and accounting. I don't know why accounting. It's like something that I thought would be a good idea.
Okay. Did you say Israel? Are you tuning in from Israel
Yes.
at the moment? Are you based in Israel? So you studied,
Yes.
work, live in Israel, right? Oh, okay.
Yes, I did for most of my life. But I used to live in the US for about 9 years. My whole family. We moved to the US at the end of 2010, and we spent there just until end of 2019, before the pandemic.
Oh, okay. And then you relocated back home. Nowhere better than home, I guess. That's good and fine. Then you got the bachelor's in computer science and accounting. What happened after that? When you began to venture out into the workforce, just want to understand, do you recall your first role? What was that role? Yeah,
definitely.
Kindly walk us through that.
So actually, after the second year of studies of my bachelor degree, I wanted to start working. On my third year, I already wanted to start working and gain some experience. So I started interviewing actually in the summer between second and third year of university, and I started to work during my third year. I worked part-time, and it was really good because it allowed me to gain some exposure to how it is to be actually working in that field. The job itself wasn't super interesting, to be honest, but it was paying the tuition. So I remember.
Was it an internship? Was it a form of an internship, or was it a full?
No, it was a part-time. It was a part-time job for students. It was a company that wanted to get students before they finish school. So they're saying, "Oh, we'll pay the last year tuition, and we'll get those students working for us before they actually finish, and then they can go anywhere they want." That was actually pretty smart from them, because I did interview for multiple places, and this tuition thing, like, okay, they pay my tuition, I'll go there. And after I graduated from university, I started working full-time at the same company, but I insisted to move from... they put me on some legacy code, like something ancient with most of it was SQL and COBOL, which I hated.
I thought you were going to say Sanskrit language.
And I realized, okay, that was okay for part-time, while I was still studying. But so I moved to Java.
Okay.
After my student year, and started working full-time there. And I worked there for, in total, I think it was 3.5 years in that company. And then I moved to Sun Microsystems, because I felt like I fell in love with Java, to be honest. I studied that through my work. And I said, well, I want to work for the company who invented it. So I went to work for Sun Microsystems, and I worked there for 10 years. I mean, it was really a great time, and I learned a ton. And you ask about certifications. I actually didn't do any certifications back then. I just learned on the go. I learned so much.
On the internet?
From I wouldn't say so much from the internet, but from the job itself and books. Back then, I mean, yeah, there was internet, but not as today, that you can go and study so much online. And I studied a lot through books or through, just doing the work. And from, obviously from other people, other engineers, more experienced ones.
Yeah, just quickly, when you worked 3 years, was that as a programmer? Then later, the 10 years was also as a programmer. So you're writing code.
The 10 years I worked at Sun, most of them I was an engineer. Again, I moved quite a lot, so I did multiple things. But the last 3 years, I was already a manager.
Okay.
At Sun.
Okay. Then you were a director at DigitalOcean at some point. When did that leap happen? Was that after the 10-year role?
So what happened was, when I was at Sun, I became a manager. Actually, I became a manager. I applied for a manager position when I was pregnant with my second child. It was an engineering manager position for a team. We developed their Java for mobile back then. It was before Android. So we developed Java for mobile and worked with a lot of, clients, OEMs, basically manufacturers, foreign manufacturers, and integrated with their software. And I started managing a team that basically developed code that ran Java on mobile devices. And I realized back then that I really wanted to grow as a manager and not so much as an IC. I realized that I didn't see my career going as a specialist, as someone who dives very deep, rather than someone that enables others to grow. That was my passion, to support other people and help them grow and thrive.
An impressive career you've had so far, and I'm glad you were able to share that. Probably some people could take some bits of nuggets from the path you've taken, which is great. Limor, just diving into the topic for today. Starting a business in the tech industry, is it for everybody?
Starting a business is definitely not for everybody. And I think, and I would even say, depending also on the stage you're at life and what are your priorities. I would say there are two main things to consider between being employed versus having your own business. So one is how much do you need stability? I know that no place is stable, right? No matter which job you take, nothing is stable. But when you work as an employee, there is a little bit more predictability because you get a paycheck every month or every 2 weeks, depending if you work in the US or elsewhere. And sometimes you need that. And when you start a business, it's like a roller coaster. So there are ups and downs, things are less predictable, and it's not for the faint of heart. So you need to really believe. I think that you need to have a strong why and be able to persist through ups and downs and just move on.
Yeah. For an individual contributor, let's say an engineer who feels stuck in some form of a job rut, they've been there for years and they're beginning to feel unappreciated and would like to get to the next level and are considering starting their own company on the side and quitting their current job. What advice would you have for this individual to go about doing this safely?
So I think that you kind of partially answer it as part of your question. So if you're doing it as part of your job, so you still work and on the side, on your free time, you're developing something else. It's taking it slower and safer for you because you don't have to leave everything. You still have a paycheck and you could develop something for yourself. I would say my biggest advice for you is just develop something and test it and see that there is a market for it. We tend to be a lot of time in love with what we think is going to be great. And we need to test it and see if there's a demand.
Completely agree. Many have been burnt that way, just taking the leap without having no safety net and just quitting their job, throwing everything into this brilliant idea, and they end up unable to find a market for it. So that's a great piece of advice. Try the hybrid approach, run both trains in parallel and gradually make the leap when you feel you're ready. I can't emphasize that enough, and good piece of advice. There's another concern which I have, and I don't know if you have observed this as well. It seems the exact archetype that will succeed as an engineer, that analytical mindset, that patience to dig into code for weeks just debugging for errors, that mindset, that personality is the exact antithesis of what is required to become a manager, a risk taker, or an entrepreneur in the tech field. So there seem to be, this dichotomy in mindset, in ideology between both sides. Do you observe this? Is this something you think is even accurate?
So first of all, it's a great question. I think there's no black and white. In general, yes. I mean, a lot of times with engineers, they are less good at communication, at creating like collaborations with people, but not all, right? I mean, we're generalizing, but a lot of times they have struggles with understanding other people. They have sometimes ego, right? They want to solve everything themselves, and hard for them to accept other opinions, or, to be more empathetic and patient and open-minded for other people. And if you want to shift from an IC, from an individual contributor, from an engineer to a manager, you have to let go of some of that. So you may not be the smartest person anymore. You may not know everything. You have to let other people take over some of it and know more than you in some areas. You have to be able to do that and not be the smartest person in a specific area. And this is really difficult for some people, but it's not impossible. I think it depends on how much you want that and what you are willing to do for that. And if you're willing to let go of some of the things that you used to do and used to know, and be willing to work with other people who, as I said, who may be smarter than you. This is, I think, one of the challenges I've seen, being able to work with people who are smarter than you in some areas, because that's the way it is. The manager is not the smartest person, but the manager usually knows how to lead the team and how to work with different people and how to grow and nurture the team. They don't need to be the smartest in every single area. With regards to entrepreneurship, I also think this kind of, it's not a black and white. It doesn't mean that if you are very kind of introverted engineer, very analytical, you cannot start your own company, but probably you will want to have not started by yourself, but started with a co-founder or maybe a group of people that supplement skills that maybe you don't have. Because every company needs, if it's a technology company, if you're starting something technological, maybe you as the engineer have the skills to start something out. You think about problems, you think about solutions, but you may not be good at sales, at marketing, at other areas, at operations. So you may need to start something with other people. It doesn't mean that you cannot be an entrepreneur, but you need to figure out what kind of role will you play in a company that you start.
That makes complete sense, and I can't agree more. The next topic I want to discuss about Limor is another one which is seldom spoken about. Stoicism, in a nutshell, I've observed it tends to play to the favor of engineers looking to climb that ladder, right? Now, as someone who coaches women, is this something you are even remotely cognizant about, that this exists in a way?
I think that what I've seen is that actually men that speak up for themselves and they show confidence, but not arrogance. So show confidence, that they have this kind of, perception of they are confident in themselves. They know what they're doing, even though they sometimes don't know everything, but that's kind of the perception that they have, succeed more, and they usually ask for what they want. They're not shying away from asking what they want. Versus others, could be, by the way, men or women, but it happens more so with women. They're great communicators, they have high EQ, but they may not necessarily showcase all their achievements, what they have done, and, being open about what they want. And that can hurt them. So I think that the advice I would give, not just for women, but for everyone, just, you have to kind of balance. You don't want to be seen as, on one hand, arrogant, but on the other hand, you don't want to shy away all the time. So just do the work and be quiet about it. There's kind of balance between doing great work, making good decisions, showing that showing confidence, but also kind of externalizing what you do a little bit. So people actually know what you're capable of, and also know, not less importantly, what you want. What are your career aspirations? Because a lot of times, it happened to me as well. I remember that before I went to become a manager, I was actually promoted to a staff engineer, and I didn't ask for it, and I didn't even want to, grow in the technical path. And no one knew because I wasn't talking about it. So just being kind of vocal about what you even want in your career. Do you want to be a manager? Do you want to grow in a tech area? If so, what growth look like for you? What interests you? What do you want to do more of? You have to have those discussions and not being afraid to talk about it.
Yeah. So regardless, women should still try to balance that stoic comportment with being emotionally intelligent and communicative, right? Middle ground would be your advice for them. I agree. Also, as a manager myself in the tech industry, more women come to me complaining about this imposter syndrome effect that they tend to experience at some point. Is it something you help coach women to get around? And if you do, what advice would you have for them?
I think that what I try to do is I try to shift the mindset from thinking about the negatives to thinking about the positives. So let's think about a woman who wants to advance. Let's say she wants to become a manager and she's an engineer now. Okay? And she said, well, to become a manager, they want experience in leading teams and they want experience in this and this, and I don't have it. And they doubt whether, they have what it takes to become a manager. And I try to encourage them, okay, let's put aside what you don't have and try to think about what the things are you're done. What kind of problems have you solved? How have you been able to exercise leadership? Because, there are two different words, leadership and management. And when you become a manager, it doesn't mean that you're a leader. It's just someone gave you a title. And you can exercise leadership at all levels. Doesn't matter, how maybe you're like the most junior engineer. You can show leadership. So I try to kind of ask those women, okay, what are the things that you have done? What kind of problems you solved that maybe no one else solved? It could be, I don't know, they have been able to build collaboration with different teams. They've been able to influence some team members or the manager of some changes and so forth. So those leadership skills are super important and shows that they are capable, for example, to become managers. So I try to just shift their focus from what they don't have to what they do have. And that helps a little bit with the confidence building and also to take small steps forward. So when we have imposter syndrome, a lot of times it comes with a lot of fears, right? Fears of doing something that you're not used to. Maybe it's, okay, you have someone in your team that you disagree with and it's hard for you to have a discussion with them where there is a disagreement, right? Those difficult conversations a lot of time come up. So try to get some exposure to those uncomfortable moments and not shying away, just stretching your limits little by little. That also builds confidence because say, hey, I can actually do that. So for me, for example, I remember one of the things were public speaking, right? I was very shy and I remember that I applied to speak at a conference like many years ago and I was terrified. To be honest, I was very bad as well. But still, I took the leap. I just created an abstract, submitted a talk, got accepted, went there and talked. Doesn't matter, the result is not always the only measurement. Even if I did something and I experimented, let's say I'm just giving that as an example in public speaking, and I sucked at it, I was really bad. At least I took a step forward. I stepped out of my comfort zone and I did it. And then I can learn and improve.
Completely agree. I agree with that.
Yeah.
You also mentioned that as you ascended the corporate ladder, you observed that there were fewer women in positions high up there. Why do you think this was the case? Or if it's still the case, I don't know. What's your thought on this?
There are multiple reasons. There is no one reason. I think that it's a combination. I think women themselves are less proactive in their careers. I mean, this is the part I'm trying to help, right? I mean, Think about it. If you have, and I've seen that a lot, if you have men and women both doing similar jobs, and the man would be more vocal about how well they did, they're usually feel more comfortable promoting them, proposing themselves for things that maybe they are not fully qualified for, well, women won't, then naturally men will be chosen for, and I've seen that also on myself, like men would be chosen for maybe leadership roles, and women will be discarded, not because they're not good, just because they're quiet and they're not saying anything and they're not showing how good they are. And it just happened. So this is one angle. The other angle is from the leadership perspective. A lot of times there are biases. There have been also biases against me because, let's say if I'm a woman, I'm not like super extroverted. I'm not, maybe I heard the word charismatic. I'm just quiet. I'm just doing my job. I don't externalize so much. So maybe my leadership team will not think I'm capable. So it's also at the leadership team. And if the leadership team is not diverse, there are more biases. And this is why it's important to, and by the way, when I'm talking about diversity, it's not just gender. It's in general, diversity of color and backgrounds and more. When you have a very homogeneous group of people, they have fixed mindset of how people should be in order to be with them in the same room, at the same table. So I think, the answer would be twofold, both for the women themselves, to be more vocal, to advocate for themselves, to find allies, to not be afraid to speak up and share their wisdom, their achievements, their knowledge, and what they want, but also the leadership team to bring in more diversity and be more open-minded and try to think about, are there biases that they have against people that are not like them? Again, it doesn't have to be a woman. It could be also men, but maybe they're very different. Maybe they didn't come from the same country. Maybe they don't have the same background. Are they thinking about them? Oh, that person is not capable just because they don't look like me. They don't sound like me. They're not like me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I want to understand the kind of client that would probably come to you for service. Let's say you said men and women, which is great. I initially thought your clientele base was exclusively women. So what type of individual would need your help, if I may put it that way?
Typically, again, I serve both, but ideally, it would be a woman in tech and she feels stuck or powerless. And she could be maybe in an IC role, or maybe she's also a manager. She could be a manager, but she wants to progress in her career. She's not exactly sure why. And she thinks that in order to progress, she needs someone to kind of give her a promotion. There need to be an opening. So they come to me and I help them see possibilities. We kind of map things and possibilities to exercise leaderships and to take the power back to themselves and drive their career forward and create opportunities.
Yeah, that makes sense. So to all of you listening, if you need that service, you reach out to Limor ASAP. Limor, just in the spirit of leaving behind some nuggets for the viewers, if you don't mind sharing, could you let us know what's the biggest mistake you've ever made in your career, tech career, that you, if there is one, that you don't mind sharing with the audience?
I think there were many mistakes, but I would say the biggest is that I was that kind of woman. I was that kind of woman who waited for someone to give me a promotion. And only when I realized that I don't need to wait for anyone, I just need to carve my own path and I need to create opportunities for myself, is where I was able to make leaps. So that's kind of, I have no regrets, right? Because why regret something that happened? But I think that looking backward, probably if I was doing the things that I help my clients to do today, I would be able to progress much more and much faster.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's say for a woman watching this who is just at the crossroads, she's having a very hard time at work. what are the conditions under which you would say it's justified for a woman to dust her feet and leave that job?
A lot of times it's harder for a woman to answer that by herself because she sees only one point of view. And that's why I think it's very important for that woman to talk to someone else. Doesn't have to be me like a coach, but a different perspective. So the big question I usually try to ask is, have you done everything you can? And if someone is stuck in her ways, that's why I'm saying sometimes the woman would say, yes, I've done everything. I'm like, no one is helping me. But like, what have you done? What have you done in order to change your, what can you do? What are the opportunities for you to make a difference? And a lot of times I try to ask them also about, okay, what is important? Not just for you, but also for the stakeholders and the leaders you work with, and try to look at it from their perspective as well. What is important for them, and how can you be that kind of person who solve problem for them and help them, which will help you eventually progress. So I think it's a question that is a little bit kind of, complex to answer, very, very kind of distinct answer, but trying to ask yourself those questions. What have you done? Have you done everything you could? What opportunities exist at your current place to be the problem solver, to help, to be more vocal about what you want, and potentially progress? It could be that that woman is really mistreated, but I wouldn't know that without kind of speaking with her and figuring out what's going on. But have you tried everything? Maybe she has, and she has been constantly being kind of ignored or mistreated or discriminated. It could be. Or maybe she just sat quietly and didn't say anything, and she thinks, well, no one progressed me here. I have nothing else for me here. But she hasn't really done the work. So I hope that helps. I think it depends on the situation.
It makes complete sense. A subjective answer to that. It's an open-ended question, I agree. And that makes sense. And if, let's say, the answer is yes, I have done everything I humanly can, and I still seem to be in the same position, still feel unappreciated, then I think they can move on, right? That's what I gather from your advice, because you initially said, don't wait for someone to promote you. You do the best you can. If you're not being appreciated, you move on. I second that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I have clients who are, and it's scary, by the way. It's scary to think about a lot of times to think about, okay, I have to move on. It's scary, especially if you're working for the same place for several years and you're scared from the thought of starting to interview. But a lot of my clients, I never tell someone what to do. But a lot of times I kind of, eventually when asking all those questions, they realize that, well, maybe they have exhausted everything they can possibly in that place, and they need to start thinking of other alternatives. And it's scary, but I would definitely encourage, if you think that you've done everything you can and there are really no opportunities, the leadership team is not supporting you, there's nothing else you can do, and even if you do, no one can guarantee that and you already spent a lot of time trying and it will just be a waste of time, then try to figure out what other opportunities are available to you.
I completely agree. There are many ways to go up the mountain. Thank you, Limor, for that. And Limor, where can the audience, anyone watching this, where can they find you online for anyone looking?
I would say go to LinkedIn and look for me. Limor Bergman Gross. Just type my name and you'll find me. That's where I'm at most of the time.
Okay, is that where you also receive your clients? We get to apply via that?
Most of them, come to me either from LinkedIn or they listen to my podcast. I have also a podcast called From a Woman to a Leader. So look for the podcast on Apple or Spotify and listen to it. And if you like it, let me know.
There you have it. Thanks again, Limor, for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Newton. I really enjoyed speaking with you today.
Until the next episode, cheers.